Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Not Mike Wright.
Woohoo!
Hey, everybody. It's Wednesday. It is Andy Holloway and Jason Moore.
It's such a good Wednesday. I hope everybody's waivers went through to their delight.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, you might have signed, who?
Might have signed
Danny Amendola.
Might have got Kamar Aiken.
It's too bad with Mike on vacation this week that he doesn't get banned from signing players.
Yeah.
Doesn't that make sense? If he's not here doing the work, why does he get to sign players in our league?
No. Although that is good advice. When you go on vacation, still do things with your league.
We didn't give that advice.
No,
but now
Mike
we are,
did.
I guess.
Mike just gave that advice to the wonderful Foot Clan out there. Thank you, Mike from Disneyland.
It is Wednesday, November 18th. We are the Fantasy Footballers, and we welcome you into another great show. We got some new segments on today's show. We will be covering the mailbag with some listener questions, but we've also got some other segments that we're going to introduce, including our Sits of the Week.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's brand new.
That sounds fantastic.
Is that the voice of public opinion?
The public wants Sits of the Week.
The voice is kind of changing a little bit.
It changes every
And it has to always have a contrarian. You understand? It has to be, but I thought Wednesday was only about mailbag.
Yeah, well, now they're excited because we listened to our Foot Clan. They wanted more. They wanted more.
More of us, less of Mike.
Yeah, so we got rid of him.
All right, let's get into the show. You can follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Check us out on the web, thefantasyfootballers.com. We'll have our rankings up today, and you'll be able to see who we like for Week 11 in the fantasy world. But I want to get to this. We've got a quick question for the day, and really it is a quiz. Okay, I've got 3 questions for you. I'm going to pretend to be a player, and you have to guess who I am.
Okay.
And it's going to be very difficult for you because there are a lot of NFL players. But these point out some fantasy football stats that are kind of interesting, and we can talk about them. And I have a feeling Mike will get them wrong.
Yeah,
he's
definitely
get
right.
some of them. Yeah. All right. So first one here. I have 5 or more receptions in every game. I have 50 or more yards in every game, but I only have 1 touchdown. Who am I? Who am I, Jason? Do you have any theories?
Let's see. I know I saw a stat the other day that Ty Hilton had been having a great year, but has not been in the end zone much. But I believe he had a 2-touchdown game. So a lot of receptions. Demaryius Thomas.
Yes.
1 for
Was that
1.
You didn't look that up?
No, I haven't looked at
Demaryius Thomas. 5 or more in every game, 50 or more yards in every game, but only 1 touchdown. Do we expect that to get any better under Brock Osweiler?
Yeah. What if I say yeah? What if I say Brock Osweiler upgrade? What if I say it, Andy?
Wow. You did make this flat-out point, which is the only point to be made. He was leading the league. Peyton was leading the league in interceptions.
Yeah.
There's opportunities lost on offense.
Not good for – and the other point would be that when Brock came in, he heavily targeted Demaryius Thomas. Short time, without practice, we'll see how it goes. But
interesting.
I mean, you come back. Isn't Brock Osweiler like 7 feet tall?
That is not quite accurate. But he was – he's an Arizona State guy. So he was recruited by Gonzaga as a basketball player. Yeah. And so he's tall and athletic. And we'll see if that matters at all.
He's 6'7".
Yeah.
That's a tall boy.
Yeah.
He's going to – I mean, who else sticks out above the wide receivers? Demaryius Thomas. All right, next question.
All right. Here we go. I am a running back, and I was drafted in the first 4 rounds of every fantasy draft. I have played in every game, yet I have not scored a touchdown this season.
Oh, man. First 4 rounds.
I was drafted in the first 4 rounds of every draft. I've played in every game, but I have not scored a touchdown in this season.
J. Stu has finally found his way into the end zone.
Oh, he's in there.
I know. First 4 rounds. Well, so that probably means you're not somebody in the first round or 2. Eddie Lacy stunk, but he's been in the end zone. So later on...
I like this because you're not even looking at a list of names. You're just staring into the sky somewhere.
Somewhere up there.
Yeah.
All right.
Whose face do you see up in the sky?
I don't remember this guy getting in
Mufasa.
I don't remember him getting into the paint, but I'm sure it's happened. I'm going to go with Alfred Morris.
Oh, it's a good guess, but no. His name is Melvin Gordon.
How did I not get that? How in the world did I not get that? I had been a Melvin Gordon owner in our league of record for many weeks, and I watched him play.
How many times did he go into the end zone?
0. I wonder if he finishes the year with a touchdown.
I have to imagine he'd get in, but who knows?
All right.
Last question for you. You've got one right. You've got one wrong.
This is the tiebreaker.
In PPR leagues, I'm the 6th ranked tight end, ahead of players like Jordan Reed, Jason Witten, and Martellus Bennett. Clue, I am also a Super Bowl champion. Who am I?
Oh, well, that I was with the PPR, I was thinking Delaney Walker, but the Super Bowl champion
right.
rules that out. All right, PPR, well, let's think Super Bowl champs. We got, Gronk, right? Gronk won a Super Bowl. He is clearly up there.
But he's not the 6th ranked tight end.
Zach Miller won a Super Bowl.
Oh, he's not 6th.
Not in PPR. Was Benjamin Watson with the new? Oh, your face says it's Benjamin Watson. I'm going with who is Benjamin Watson, PPR machine. All right, I win.
2 of 3. That is impressive.
All right,
Benjamin Watson. You walked through that pretty well. Sometimes around the studio when we have questions like that, Jason works through this, almost Sherlock-like detective process, and we don't really know what he's saying or what he's doing, but he gets there. So, yes. Benjamin Watson, the 6th ranked tight end right now in PPR formats, ahead of some of those guys that we talked about. Didn't have a big week last week, but
now for the record, oh my goodness, I think I might have gone 3-0. I wanted to see. I don't believe Alfred Morris has had a touchdown this year.
Was he a top 4 though?
He had to have been top 4 rounds.
Yeah, you're probably right.
So there we go. 2 guys. All right.
All right. That's pretty good.
The more you know.
I'm glad you vetted yourself. You're 3 for 3.
All right.
Not bad. All right, let's go ahead and we got some news and notes on the show today.
News and notes from around the league.
All right, we wanted to break a little bit of news that we got since yesterday's, since the show we actually recorded this morning. This one's being recorded at night before Wednesday morning. And first of all, shocker.
Breaking news.
Sarcasm filter.
Is this the Christian
maximum? Christine Michael has been cut.
Do you know what that means?
Mike was wrong.
No. Oh. It means the new Kristen Michael watch is on. We get to see where he lands and becomes an amazing running back prospect.
If he can be, you're probably right. Some running back's going to get you. Are you telling me right now that Houston wouldn't rather have Christine Michael running back there than Alfred Blue?
If he signs on any team that has a glimmer of hope, I will want to throw up at Mike.
So the news is that Mike's been cut, and so is Kristen Michael. Yeah. That's why Mike's not here today. He's been cut.
He's mourning.
All right. Brashad Perryman on injured reserve, ending his delightful rookie season.
I actually grabbed him in a league, threw him on my IR because I thought maybe the last 4 weeks he'd do something. He's going to get cut.
Their season is over. Why risk it, is the thought. TJ Yeldon, we were talking a lot about Denard Robinson yesterday because things did not look good for Yeldon. The latest report that we have is that he has shed the walking boot, and his own claim is that he'll be fine for Thursday.
Yeah, that kind of makes me sad.
I think he will play. I think he will play.
He's been injured throughout the year, and he's played, very similar to his teammate Alan Hearns. So, yeah, it made me sad because we had talked at lunch that I was excited for the Denard Robinson prospect to see, but it's irrelevant, probably.
Yeah, it looks like Yeldon is likely to play. You can still, if you want to grab, if you're a Yeldon owner and you want to grab Robinson as insurance because you need a running back, you could do that. Yeah. Just so you're safe on the Thursday night game. All right, Ryan Matthews was not spotted on the practice field Tuesday. You have to watch the reports today, the concussion.
Yeah, he has not been cleared to practice. So, as this is worse than, say, where Latavius Murray was. He was essentially back at practice right away, even though he hadn't been cleared for the game. So, not good news there.
DeMarco Murray faces the Tampa Bay Bucks this week.
Yeah,
it's an okay matchup. The Bucks have actually been pretty good against the run, but no Ryan Matthews in the mix maybe.
Yeah, it definitely helps the carry volume of Murray.
All right, so before we move on to our sits of the week, which Jason and I will debut, some guys that we want you to avoid if you're making decisions on your fantasy roster, we do want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's podcast, and that's Avant. Avant is a company that gets it. Sometimes honest, hardworking people need a little extra cash to get things done, and Avant provides access to personal loans from $1,000 to $35,000 without ever having to step into a bank. You simply go to avantoffer.com and check your competitive rate, and checking will not affect your FICO score in any way. The application takes only a moment, and funds could be in your account as soon as tomorrow. Avant will give you a $50 Amazon.com gift card after you make your first payment on time. For this offer, and to check your rate risk-free, go to avantoffer.com and enter promo code BALLERS. That's avantoffer.com, promo code BALLERS, AVANT, promo code BALLERS. Loans are made by WebBank. Funds are generally deposited via ACH the next business day if approved by 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time through Friday, Monday through Friday. FICO is a registered trademark of Fair Isaac Corporation, and Amazon is not a sponsor of this promotion. Other restrictions apply. See the website for details. All right, Jason, are you ready? Are you ready for this?
Let's put him down.
Sits of the week.
All right. So these are guys that we don't really like. We don't like their matchups. We know you have decisions to make as fantasy owners. You have these guys on your team.
Yeah,
that's the basis of this.
Yeah, they're worth owning. We're not saying drop any of these guys. We're saying
watch out. Watch out.
Maybe sit them if you.
All right, I'm gonna kick it off.
You do it.
All right, my quarterback sit of the week is the opposite of staying in the flames. It is staying in the mud with Andy Dalton. And I'm sorry, Andy Dalton has Arizona in Arizona, another primetime game for Andy Dalton, which he's not exactly known for performing in. I don't want to disparage the man too much because it wasn't just on him on Monday Night Football. There were drops, there were fumbles, there were problems all throughout. But Andy Dalton had a bad game, and Arizona's not going to help them out at all. They haven't given up 30 fantasy points to any quarterback in the entire season. They have a ball-hawking secondary, and you've got a team that'll be at home in prime time, a very good defense. So I think Andy Dalton, I've heard from people, right, that have Drew Brees and Andy Dalton. Obviously, Brees is not playing this week, so you're stuck. But
yeah,
rest of
Dalton.
season questions, there's a lot of those things, and I just don't like the schedule for Dalton compared to Brees, and I don't like Dalton this week.
Yeah, that prime time. I mean, he buckled on prime time. He's kind of known to do that. He's got the Sunday night again. I like it.
Yeah, I'd play somebody else.
All right, my quarterback sit of the week is actually the opposite of your opposite of staying in the flames. It is
great.
Yeah, it is a guy who has been on fire. It is a guy who we would say maybe stay in the flames.
I cannot believe this is your pick.
I know. It's my pick.
I am in shock.
You are in shock. I am not because I picked it. It is Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler has been on fire. We normally recommend when they are this hot to stay in the flames, which is the exact reason I picked him. Because people might say, I need to keep rolling him, and I don't think it's going to happen this week. He plays the Broncos. The Broncos have not been okay. They have been otherworldly against almost every single opponent they have played all year.
In terms of quarterback?
In terms of quarterback and passing game. Not necessarily the run. The run, they've been middle of the road. But against the passing game, they have shut it down. They shut down Aaron Rodgers. They shut down everybody they played. Andrew Luck had a decent game 2 weeks ago. And then last week, they still were awesome. They didn't give up a whole lot, but they didn't have Aqib Talib. He'll be back this week off of his suspension. There's no reason that I think the Broncos will do anything other than have a great defense again this week. That doesn't bode well for Jay Cutler.
All right.
Hold him, grab him. He was a waiver wire claim. He's got a great playoff schedule, but sit him down this week.
All right. So who is your running back that you are staying away from?
Well, I hope that most people are already staying away. I don't think I'm breaking any crazy news here, but there is no world in which I would want to plug in Jeremy Hill. And this is, Mike, we sent him away, and we could finally have a little bit of realistic talk on the Jeremy Hills.
We have to prepare for the kind of intervention that we're going to have when he gets back. We're going to have to break. We're keeping the news from him about Christian Michael because we know he's not going to have fun in the happiest place on earth if his favorite player is cut.
Yeah, we gotta keep him in the dark. Jeremy Hill ran for a nice, healthy 2 yards a carry last week. Only got 7 carries anyways.
It's a good reason to only get 7 carries.
Comes up this week against the Arizona Cardinals in Arizona, whose run D has been awesome. I don't see any reason to think. I mean, sure, Jeremy Hill could get in the end zone. He's got that. If A.J. Green gets tackled at the 1, maybe Jeremy Hill will be okay. But 7 of 10 weeks, he hasn't even gotten double digits in fantasy. I think there's a lot of better options out there to start.
Very fair, very fair. My running back sit of the week is James Starks. A lot of reasons for this, but the biggest one has to do with going to Minnesota, who just plain knows how to play defense under Mike Zimmer. They're 9th against fantasy running backs in terms of points given up. There are variables in play with James Starks. Everyone can come out and say James Starks is now the starter, and that is absolutely correct. Here's what I also know. They have never won a game with him as the starter this season. They have struggled on offense. The offense is having a problem, and you have the variables with Eddie Lacy if he happens to be active this week, and you mix that in with the matchup, and I just don't like James Starks.
I love the pick. He was the bona fide full-time starter against the hapless Detroit Lions, and he didn't do hardly anything with it. And now Eddie Lacy might be back to eat a little bit into that workload, and a great matchup. So yeah.
Was that the intentional eat into the workload? Because that's Eddie Lacy tends to.
Yeah, that's what he does. He eats everything.
Yeah, so he was inactive.
Like a goat.
Oh, great. That one will stick. All right, I'm going to give you my wide receiver because you're going to kind of understand the theme here because it's A.J. Green. A.J. Green, you heard me talk about Andy Dalton. I don't like A.J. Green shadowed by Patrick Peterson on Sunday Night Football. I think there are other options for Dalton, and that the offense is going to struggle a little bit, and I just don't like the matchup in general. So if you have A.J. Green, give me a situation there. Give me some other players. Would I start him or sit him over there?
Would you? Well, I think one of our first questions, A.J. Green or T.Y. Hilton.
I would play Hilton.
A.J. Green or Allen Hurns.
Yeah, that's a tough one. That is a tough one because you have A.J. Green and his big playability. But right now, I'm going to say Allen Hurns.
There you go.
That's the level of sittage.
Yeah.
That's a real word. All right,
if,
go ahead.
If you've got a Mike Evans or someone like that, you would start him over
exactly,
A.J. Green.
Exactly.
Okay. So my sit of the week at wide receiver is a guy that we just told you yesterday to pick up on the waivers, Kamar Aiken. The reason we love Aiken is he is the number 1 target. He's going to get
14 targets last week.
Exactly. He's going to get 10+ targets every single game. The problem here is another one of matchup. First, you have to realize that not everybody is, some guys we talk about being matchup proof. There are certain players that they rise to the occasion and certain players whose talent really takes advantage of the worse opponents on those occasions. Well, Kamar Aiken, he was a middle-of-the-pack type of wide receiver. He's not an otherworldly talent. That's why he wasn't in the wide receiver 1 position. Steve Smith was. He's been thrust in there, and now he's going up against the Rams, who have just been next to the Broncos. They are the next best against the pass. So I'm just not loving his talent against that defense. I know that the Jay Cutler team carved up the Rams last week, but I think that's the aberration. So
yeah, okay, so let me put that into practice here. Would you start Kamar Aiken, or would you start Jordan Matthews against Tampa?
Jordan Matthews, assuming he is healthy and out there.
Would you start Kamar Aiken or Marvin Jones against Arizona?
At that point, I would have to go Kamar Aiken. So okay. I'm not. These aren't
I'm just
over
curious.
Everyone, but
right.
Kamar Aiken is the number 1 target. He's got a terrible matchup. But Marvin Jones is probably the number 2 or 3 target and also has a terrible matchup.
All right, the tight end I'm staying away from this week, I have less confidence in, is a guy that is on a lot of rosters with other tight ends, and that's Antonio Gates. I don't think Antonio Gates has a very good week this week. The Kansas City defense is known for stopping the tight end position in fantasy football, and obviously that translates to real-life ability, and they stop the tight ends. They're in the top 6 against fantasy tight ends. He doesn't quite look himself right now athletically, and I just think the Kansas City defense as a whole has been ascending week after week. 6 sacks last week, 5 the week before. I understand Gates is going to get his targets, but I just don't see a big game from him. So if I had another comparable option to Gates, if I'm, obviously you don't get to roll Barnidge out. A lot of people have that situation. Barnidge is on bye, but if you have a comparable guy, I would be sitting Gates.
Yeah, I hear that. The guy that I would be sitting who is normally a starter is Martellus Bennett. The last couple weeks, he's actually been the second tight end on their team. I don't expect that to continue. I don't think Zach Miller is going to continue to have just amazing catch reception for touchdown week after week. But that being said, he's splitting those targets now. Martellus Bennett used to get all of the targets. Now they're getting Zach Miller more involved. And once again, you see the pairing here as well against that Broncos defense. Broncos have been exceptional against the tight end as well. They've given up very few large games to the tight end. I don't think that Martellus Bennett is going to get it done, and he has a name that you normally start. He's going to hurt a couple of fantasy teams that decide to roll with him instead of flexing in someone better.
Well, would you flex in Eric Ebron?
Absolutely. Great example. He's on waivers, or at least was. Maybe you picked him up. I would play Eric Ebron over Martellus Bennett.
What about Charles Clay against New England?
Charles Clay, you saw him get used again this last week. He disappeared for a little while, but I would rather have Charles Clay.
I'm with you. So those are our sits of the week, and obviously next week we'll have Mike with us. He'll give us his as well, but he's riding a roller coaster or something right now. So, yeah. Well, can you do that with that beard? Is that legal? Can you get that? Wouldn't that get caught somewhere? No, I'd not say woo.
Oh,
I'm talking about would the beard get caught in some of the peripheral, you're on a roller coaster.
No, Disneyland doesn't discriminate. They don't discriminate against beards.
Hipsters permitted. All right, let's get into the mailbag.
Mailbag.
I forgot it. I was waiting since Monday, and I forgot. I was just sitting here, and then it didn't happen. And I went, oh, that's me again.
Oh, the absence of Mike is felt.
We need you.
Oh, my gosh. That was like a gunshot. You said it so fast to sneak it in there. All right, this is the mailbag section of the show. We are answering questions from the listeners, trying to give you some perspective, trying to relate these things to some of the decisions you have to make on your fantasy team each and every week. If you have a question, it's real easy. You go to the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, click the submit a question button. If you have an urgent trade question, you want some feedback on your roster, who to start, who to sit, that's where you go. You can also call us 302-464-TFFB. Leave us a voicemail question. We're going to answer some today. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Here we go. Let's go with Matt in Philadelphia. Who is a better keeper pick going into next year? Jeremy Langford or Dion Lewis? This league is a PPR, but let's just talk about Langford as a talent. Let's talk about Lewis for those that are dynasty keeper league owners. I think we're kind of seeing Langford's time maybe evaporating soon in terms of relevance this year. I don't want to speak too soon though, because it's John Fox and maybe Forte's out another 6 weeks for all we know. But we're not expecting it. So both of these guys are projecting more towards next year.
Yeah. So the real question for this for this answer is what's going to happen with Matt Forte, his contract. Is he going to be re-signed? If Forte leaves, if Forte is not a part of the Chicago Bears next year, then clearly the answer would be a runaway home run. Langford would be the guy. So your high upside pick as to who you want to keep, I think the highest upside would be Langford if you have to keep him early.
Which you most likely don't have to do.
Right. So if you don't have to do that and Forte is back, Langford is a guy that you're going to be able to get later in the draft. And, I'm not excited about keeping either of these guys, to be honest.
Do you have a gut feeling on Forte's situation? Do you think he'll be back? Because I do not.
You do not think he'll be back, or you
I
do not have a gut
think he
feeling?
will be back.
Yeah, I feel like he will be back. So,
yeah.
I mean, I just don't think that there's a better option for him to go elsewhere. That being said, they were not threatening, but they were, accepting trade offers. They are looking to build the new Bears.
Well, the new Bears are Kevin White and Jeremy Langford, Alshon Jeffrey, hopefully, if he's re-signed, which is just still bewildering to me that he's not.
Well, you saw it right last year with Dallas. They needed to sign Dez. They needed to sign DeMarco Murray.
Yep.
And they signed the wide receiver because running backs are easier to find, and they've got the guy in tow.
Exactly.
So you might be onto something here.
Yeah, and so talk to me about Dion Lewis, though, because Lewis is going to be coming off an ACL injury in an offense that's always remaking itself. I like Lewis. They stuck with Lewis. They gave him money. So is Lewis just going to slide back into this role next year?
No, he could, but he's not just going to slide back into it. When he comes back, He's got to earn it. The Patriots are always moving on to the next thing. If they go out and they get another guy and they like him, you know what I'm more interested to see this offseason is not who they draft, but who they sign. They have a history of going and signing other middle-of-the-pack guys. I mean, they signed Danny Amendola. They signed Wes Welker from the Dolphins. They liked what they saw. They signed Dion Lewis. He goes out and scouts players on other teams, not just rookies coming in, and says, this guy can help our system. If they go and sign somebody like that, then I'm a little bit less likely to just crown Dion Lewis with that role.
Yeah, that's very fair. I think good perspective. You know, if you're a dynasty owner and you're having to sit there and make a decision right now, it's a tough one, but I actually lean Langford for the long term. Because if you're in a keeper league, a dynasty league, yeah, okay, maybe Forte's back. Does he got a year left?
Right.
I mean, at least you've got the guy that we've seen go out and dominate in the passing game and the running game. All right, Chris in Chicago. He has a rest of season question for you, Jason. Would you rather, well, for us, I guess, would you rather want Carlos Williams or Danny Woodhead rest of season?
Oh, Danny Woodhead. To me, that's easy because, we get a lot of questions. Hey, rank these guys. And in the list, there's starters and there's backups. Rank these guys rest of season. Well, look, Carlos Williams, if Shady goes down, he's going to be ranked super high. If Shady's in there, he's not. And I'm never going to project an injury to a starter ahead of a guy. I can grab him and have him there on my bench. But if I'm just statting these guys out, I'm going to stat him where he is. He's a backup. Danny Woodhead in a half-point PPR or full-point PPR is like a top 5 or 6 running back right now. You've got to go Woodhead.
I completely agree. And Billy in the Gulf of Mexico, he's actually in it. He's actually he's actually in the Gulf right now swimming. Would you want – this is a follow-up of sorts. What about Forsett or Woodhead rest of the season?
I like it. Forsett to me is the guy in Baltimore. He's who they're – I don't think they're going to be testing out Buck Allen the way that I believe, they didn't invest in Buck Allen as the future. They just grabbed the guy who can come in and plug in behind Justin Forsett, who they re-signed. On the flip side, San Diego's lost a lot of games, and they really do need to figure out who Melvin Gordon is. So these are 2 starters, both good. Both have been good this year. Both have been running well. If I'm projecting rest of season, I'd probably take Forsett.
Does it change if it's a full-point PPR league? Or not really?
Probably not, but that does give a little bit more credence to Woodhead. The reason I say probably not is because Forsett catches passes too, just not at the same clip. So you'd give a slight bump to Woodhead if it's a full point PPR.
If it's me, I would want Forsett because even though Woodhead's performed exceptionally, I have a hard time trusting a situation when I guess Woodhead is like Dion Lewis this year, where I should probably trust him a little bit more. But it's hard when they don't get between the tackle carry work automatically, and he's been impressive. So
Danny Woodhead has been one of my favorite people this year to recommend targeting in a trade. You want to know why?
Because nobody thinks he's that great.
Nobody respects him. The owners of Danny Woodhead don't even think he's that good. The only guys who actually give him the respect that Danny Woodhead legitimately deserves are the people who normally you wouldn't expect to do that because they just look at the number next to a guy and go, he's the 5th running back.
Yeah.
He's number 5. And
Mike, if you remember early season, Mike traded him away because he didn't believe it could be sustained.
Yeah, he traded him away for
C.J. Anderson.
Yeah, which would have been great if he was not able to then flip C.J. Anderson into LaShawn McCoy.
All right, Joe in Worcester wants to know another rest of season question. Is it Brandon Marshall or is it Demaryius Thomas rest of season for you?
Rest of season, it's definitely going to be Brandon Marshall. We don't know the quarterback situation, and while I think, as crazy as it is, that Brock Osweiler will be good for Demaryius Thomas, Brandon Marshall has just been – he's been an absolute plug-and-play wide receiver 1. When he's on the field, he gets far more red zone opportunities, and he is used non-stop. So Brandon Marshall, love him.
I agree with you. What's the next question we have on here?
Zach in San Diego wants to know another rest of season schedule. Get a lot of these questions of rest of season. This is where trade deadlines are coming up, and you're going, I got to make a decision not just for this week. Tony Romo or Matt Ryan?
I'm going to take the upside potential of Tony Romo here. I think that he's had enough time to get well and that they're not going to throw him out there at a risk. I think the weapon he has with Dez, obviously Ryan has Julio, but I just haven't seen enough consistency from Ryan in terms of multi-touchdown games that are going to win you games. I personally would be done with the doldrums of Matt Ryan. I'd grab Tony Romo, and then if I had to stream somebody else, I would, because I don't feel like I'm losing much cutting Matt Ryan right now.
Completely agree, 100%.
All right, Tyler in Pensacola, Marshawn Lynch or Mark Ingram rest of season?
I think
I actually answered this one earlier.
You did?
I did. Someone asked this one via our website and sent it through on an email.
I'm going to guess that your answer was the easy one, which is Mark Ingram.
It is. And it has a lot to do with how nice his schedule looks to end the year. Not just the fact he's ahead of Lynch right now. If it was a neutral situation where, moving forward, I'm not sure exactly who I'd pick, but Ingram's been so good, and his schedule in the playoffs is just wonderful.
Yeah, we talked up Tim Hightower for a small minute.
Did we talk him up?
Well, we mentioned his name, which for
Okay.
him right now is like really being talked up. He's like, someone talked about me.
Oh, man, it's not 2008?
No. So the reality there is that when Ingram was in that game, after Kyrie Robinson went down, Ingram was on the field for 88% of snaps the next game. But then this last week, it was down in the 40s, and the reason was because he was gone for the entire middle portion of that game with some kind of injury. I'm not sure what it was. But his usage after Kyrie Robinson goes out, I believe, is going to be more in that 80% of snaps. They do not trust C.J. Spiller. His schedule's great. You get the red zone.
You're on the same side then.
I love Mark Ingram.
That makes sense. I mean, do you think – we were talking about this earlier. Sean Payton, they just let Rob Ryan go. Do you think Payton's back next year?
No.
I think it's done.
Yeah.
His time in New Orleans is over, and
there's so much going on with the ownership there that is embarrassing to say the least, with all of the questions as to who owns it. Is there a family dispute? And I believe Sean Payton even has a clause in his contract where if the ownership or management above him changes, he can be released. So I think, the Saints have pretty much come out and said
his contract's up anyway, right?
Yeah. So I don't expect him to stick around. And I think that'll be good for him. I expect, if we're calling it early,
yeah,
I think he's going to be the coach of the Indianapolis Colts and Andrew Luck. That is a super way too early prediction of the week.
Of the year.
Yeah.
Actually, of the years.
Yeah, we make those yearly, not weekly.
It would make it exciting.
Oh, I
for
would
Andrew
love
Luck
that.
owners, maybe not Drew Brees owners.
No, well, Drew Brees, how much time does he really have left? If you could go from Brees.
Last time he heard you say that, he threw 7 touchdowns.
Well, he's not going to this week, and I guarantee it. He's on bye.
Yes, indeed. All right, let's answer this one. Zach in Phoenix, is it time to give up on Jeremy Maclin and stream a wide receiver 3? Well, I'm not sure what your answer is. I don't know if you did put your fist in the air.
I pumped my fist in the air because we have many a preseason water bet on Jeremy Maclin. And I was wanting to know, where were those bets? I believe I bet that he would not get 1,000 yards. It was looking really bad for me early.
Yeah, you're probably going to win that.
Oof,
because he's at 583 right now.
Yeah, that's
how many games left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You're probably going to win that. So he's going to have to put up a couple of those. He had an 8 for 141 earlier. He had an 11 for 148. But I think the reason this listener is writing in is because he had a goose egg, and then he had 3 for 35 and 3 for 17.
Yeah, at least on the 3 for 35, I believe he scored, which salvaged his day. But they are not using him the way that they used him.
They didn't need to, though.
That's true.
They just picked 4 interceptions. So I don't know if that last game should be your basis for start streaming somebody else. In this upcoming game against San Diego, I think he's going to be okay. I think he's a wide receiver 2. That's where he'll end up in my rankings, a wide receiver 2 this week.
Yeah, this week against San Diego, not for me. For me,
well,
he'll probably end up.
Then that should absolutely be a water bet that he will end up in the top 24 this week.
I accept.
Water bet.
And the Maclin bets continue for all of time.
Hey, tell me, how many weeks has it been since he's had, let's say, 4 receptions in a game?
It's been 3 starts, it looks like.
No. Keep going.
4 starts?
4 starts, 5 weeks. I'm counting that by.
I noticed you were. Okay, so it's been a little while. I expect him to be in the top 24 this week.
You're going to need that touchdown.
We'll see.
All right.
We'll see. They are facing off against the Chargers. We'll find out.
Yep.
That is how the water bets work. And then one of us will spin the wheel of water.
With the Wheel of Water app that you can download for free right now on the Apple iTunes Store.
I love just shamelessly promoting it because it's not a
we don't get anything from it.
Yeah, it's just a free app for everyone to use. And so what we get out of it is literally the visceral reaction to watching people videotape the Wheel of Water waterings and then just put them on Twitter with the hashtag Wheel of Water, and then we laugh a lot in the studio. You bring us joy.
There's not a day goes by in the studio that we don't look for that hashtag Wheel of Water.
I know.
And giggle as people around the country throw water on themselves or others.
Yes.
So
grab the
bets.
app, and better yet, videotape it and post it so we can have happiness in our lives.
Yeah, it's more about our happiness.
Mike is in Disneyland. Jason and I personally need some joy.
My heart's growing bitter. Bitter. Yeah.
All right. Zach, is that where I'm up to? No,
Nope.
I'm up to, okay, Drifter Uniball in Montreal.
Oh, bonjour.
There you go. Should I trade Chris Ivory for Randall Cobb?
No.
Also, he says he friggin' loves the show. Friggin'. And my son and I listen at half speed because it makes it sound like you guys are all drunk.
Well, I hope your son is 21 years or older. Let's see here. So this is obviously, normally when it's a running back for a wide receiver, the thing that comes out of my mouth is this is team dependent. But I don't think this is team dependent. I think almost no matter what, unless you've got Mark Ingram, Adrian Peterson, and Todd Gurley on your team as your other three running backs, I don't trade Chris Ivory for a middling wide receiver. So
that's me making sure that they understand in ultra slow-mo.
No. That's going to be just a mess. You got to say, don't do it. Don't do it. Please don't do it.
There you go.
When they're listening half speed, it'll just sound regular.
No, don't do that trade. Don't do that trade. All right, Zach in the Netherlands. Who should I start? Week 11. He needs 2 out of these 4 to start. Macklin against the Chargers, Brandon LaFell against the Bills, Devontae Adams against the Vikings, and A.J. Green against the Cardinals.
Well, we know that LaFell's going to be in there, right? Because that to me seems like the clear-cut number one. You've got the injuries that are going to force more balls LaFell's way, the good matchup against the Bills. Pasty. Am I right there? Are you in
Absolutely.
on that? All right.
LaFell's the one guarantee here. I was very close to just saying LaFell Adams right away. I am a little on the fence, Macklin and Adams, and yes, A.J. Green's at the bottom. That seems silly, but it is. It's the case. So LaFell and Adams is my 2 picks.
LaFell and Adams for you. Well, Macklin is clearly at the bottom of mine. With it being a full-point PPR, it gives a little bit more room to me for Devontae Adams. I know that A.J. Green is your sit of the week, but I'm still going to take A.J. Green.
That's fine.
The Vikings defense has been very good. Devontae Adams has not. So I expect A.J. to get 5 for 50, and then we're just hoping for that touchdown.
Yeah, and so I don't mind that. Jayco in Honolulu, Hawaii. Love you guys. With Edelman going down, I can start Amendola or Stevie Johnson.
Ooh.
Who's the better outlook for the rest of the season?
Man, that's a great question. I don't mean that as in like that is a question that I want to know the answer to. I have no answer to, Jayco, but I am excited to see who between Stevie Johnson and Amendola has a better rest of the season.
And honestly, Jason's that's the truth. We don't really know the workload for either guy. I mean, we haven't seen Stevie other than one game without Keenan Allen, and Amendola has been involved, but that offense kind of changes. If I had to bet on one, I think I'm betting on Amendola.
Me too. I would bet on Amendola.
I'm very in between.
Here's the way that I break it down, and I believe I will be right in this. Stevie Johnson is going to have a more consistent floor. I can't imagine a game where Stevie Johnson goes out and only gets 4 points because game flow didn't work his direction. He's going to be a heavily targeted, but not a whole lot of yards per target type of guy. And he'll be useful. He'll be in your lineup as a flex and be okay. Amendola,
so it's touchdowns to you. It's the potential for touchdowns
for
that's the
him.
Difference?
Yeah, but for Amendola, I could see games where Amendola still finishes with 4 points, 2 points. But Amendola's upside is just clearly so much higher because of Tom Brady, because of that offense.
I just don't want to oversell Amendola because they could bring somebody else into the mix. Keyshawn Martin or Scott Chandler could get more involved, or all of a sudden James White. It's just I want to temper that. I'm really on the fence. I don't know the answer. That's
Well,
the truth. We don't know the answer to that question.
If you want upside, go Amendola. If you just need a consistent
That's
third
fair.
option,
That's
go
very
Stevie,
fair. That's
Stevie
very fair.
Johnson.
Johnny in Australia. Hey, mates. Sitting 9-1, gearing up for the playoffs. Trade Justin Forsett for Mark Ingram straight up? Yeah. Do it.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, Mark Ingram. You want Mark Ingram. He's got a great end-of-season schedule. He's more consistent. He's got goal line carries.
He's even catching passes as many as Justin Forsett has been in
as long as he's healthy. So, Drew in Saskatchewan.
Bonjour.
Yeah, what? These are all like...
We are an international show here.
I guess so, man. A lot of these are international. Where am I? Drew? All right, thank you for all you do. Listen to you every day. Use the advice. Need to pick a quarterback for the rest of the season. Is it Carson Palmer or is it Phillip Rivers?
As one of those guys has been playing great. One of those guys has been playing very poorly. And I'm going to take the one that's playing poorly because this is fantasy football, not real football.
And in fantasy football, Phillip Rivers gets to end the season. I don't know anymore.
You don't know?
I don't know anymore.
Well, let's.
I'm going to go Carson Palmer because
right.
Carson Palmer's shown that he's matchup proof. And Phillip Rivers, here's this face off. Kansas City's his next game. Okay. Then you have Jacksonville, Denver, Kansas City, Miami, Oakland.
So in the playoffs, you've got Kansas
KC
City
in Kansas City, Arrowhead.
Okay, that's
a brutal matchup.
Yeah, I don't love it. You've got Miami.
Miami and Oakland are fine.
And then what's Carson Palmer's playoff schedule? That's what I care about.
Palmer's playoff schedule is Minnesota, Philadelphia, and Green Bay. 2 of 3 at home.
Yeah, I'm going to take Phillip Rivers by a hair.
I'm going to take Palmer.
There you go.
Nothing to bet on there, really, but I
both
think
good options.
I've just seen enough from Palmer in big games now that I think he can do it.
I agree with the matchup proof. In fact, he has a better fantasy points per game against top half pass defenses than he does against the bottom half pass defenses.
Wow.
So there you go.
So
that just feeds to your point.
Yeah, it's going to be close. I mean, we've seen from Rivers that win or lose, he gets his numbers too. So I think both offenses are willing to sling the ball around. He just lost Keenan Allen, so I lean to the Carson side. Jason leans to the Rivers side, and you're probably okay with both. So Dwayne, last question here. Dwayne in Winnetka? I should have known that.
It's California.
California. After the past 2 weeks, how do you guys feel about the matchups with the Houston Texans going forward? They're starting to look like the defense everyone thought they'd be.
Are you saying that from the last week? Have they been good for multiple weeks here?
I believe they had didn't they have a very good game against Miami? Didn't I? Or maybe it wasn't Miami. Maybe that was the opposite. That was the game that they got boat raced. Who am I thinking about here?
They had a very bad game.
A terrible game against Miami.
Tennessee, they did actually have a pretty good game. They only gave up.
The last
6
two
points.
games, Tennessee and Cincinnati, they've been great. 6 points allowed in each game. This is coming off the Miami game where they gave up 44.
Here's the problem: Jadeveon Clowney should be back.
That's the problem.
Apparently, that's the problem. He's been in, and they haven't been quite as good. One of the things that I will say that we've noticed on film is that the secondary has very much improved. The secondary was just terrible, and they've gotten better as the season's gone on. So while I don't think that they are, the Texans that everybody wanted them to be, they have improved. They're definitely a streamable candidate. I wouldn't, stash them for the entire rest of season. They start the playoffs with New England and then Indianapolis, not exactly 2 games that you would usually want to start a defense against, but in the right matchup, you can absolutely start them.
I think that they're a very good rest of season defense, especially in the playoffs. How do you disagree with the Indianapolis game?
Well,
Divisional game?
Yeah, Andrew Luck should be back by then.
I don't know. I guess that's the part that I'm questioning, if he'll be back by then.
Well, that's 5 weeks away, so
yeah,
it's definitely in that range where he might not be.
I think that they are much better than what they had been in the season. I don't know if they're as good as they were the past 2 weeks. So, all right, that is it for today. Do you got anything to add, Jason?
No, the only thing we mentioned it yesterday, but we're starting to make sure that everybody that's playing right now, if you want to be in a really, really cool league next year with people who listen to the show, know what they're doing, are active, are involved, they do trades, they talk, you get a forum and you could chat with people and just have a fun time, build some relationships. We're going to be doing that over at jointhefoot.com. That's our community. That's where Andy, myself, and Mike always hang out, chat with people, building some good friendships over at jointhefoot.com.
Yep. So tomorrow we'll be back with our starts of the week, fantasy forecast, week number 11. We'll get you ready to go, and hopefully we'll have some great picks for you, help you win your league this week, win your game. Let's do it.
Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another edition of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Don't forget to visit us on the web at www.thefantasyfootballers.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.